So this is the process of maintaining different versions of a particular code. Okay. See, now yesterday you wrote one program and you put it in WhatsApp. Maybe today you make some changes to that code. Okay, you make some changes to that code which you had put in WhatsApp yesterday. And after making changes to the code, now again you have now you see, basically when you download that file from WhatsApp, old file is gone. Now you have you have modified that code, and then now you have the latest file with you. Tomorrow again you, by chance, you require that previous change, okay, which you had done yesterday. I mean older program. Then how will you get it? Because already you modified that file, right? Already you have made modification to that file. So now you are in dilemma because you had a file, you modified the file. After modifying the file, now you have a new file. So the old program is gone, you have only new program with you, latest program. Now tomorrow if I say, "Arey, I want that same old file again," then you are in a dilemma because that old file is not with you, right? So that is where version controlling comes into picture. Version controlling is mandatory in the real time. If you don't know version control tool and you are saying I am Python programmer, nobody will believe. Okay. So that is a mandatory software, but nobody will teach with Python and all version controlling. I am teaching, I am showing you how to do this and how to work with this. Okay. Now you see. That's why in any interview they'll ask a simple question. When you go for interview, you must study Python to huge extent, and you may go for some interview and they'll ask you one question: how are you sharing the code with your team? So they'll ask how many members are there in your team. So you will say something. I have 10 members in my team. So then he'll say, how are you sharing your code with each other in your company? So mostly people will give wrong answer. They will say we are sending by email. So that is not the correct answer. Okay. The answer, on the other hand, you have to tell that we are using a version control tool for sharing the code. Like you have to say that. But mostly these people who study Python or Java, they don't know this. They don't know what is version controlling and all these things. Okay. That's why I'm teaching you the most popular version control tool in the world. That is called as Git. Okay, Git is the most popular version control tool available in the entire world. So mostly all people, they make use of Git for version controlling. Okay. Now, anyway, coming to what is version controlling. So this is a process of maintaining different versions of a particular code. Okay, so whenever you want to maintain different versions of a particular code, then you make use of version controlling. All the developers upload their code into the version controlling system. So developers, they will upload all the code into the version controlling system, that is called as check-in. So let us say you have three programmers. Okay, programmer 1, programmer 2, programmer 3. These three guys, they will be developing code, right? So all the code they will be pushing into version control system. Okay, whatever code they developed, what code they developed today, what code they developed yesterday, all that SQL, PLSQL, Python, whatever code they develop, they put that in version control system. So for example, you have three developers building web application. Developer one is assigned with building of the login page. So in the web application, maybe there is some login page that is being developed by developer one. Developer 2 has to build a registration page and so on. Okay, so everyone has to build some part of the code. So every person is writing the code, okay, and they're contributing to the project. Now, in case the developer 2 needs the login page code in his registration code. Okay, so this developer 2 is building some registration page. Okay, programmer 2 is building a registration page. Programmer 1 is developing the login page. This programmer 2 needs the login page. So he does not rewrite that code. Obviously, he will not develop one more login page because already programmer 1 has built that login page and it's working perfectly. So he will want to directly use the code that has been written by the first developer. So whatever code the first developer has written, that is to be shared with the second developer. Okay, that has to be shared with the second developer. So how will you share? You can do email. In old days, they used to use email and all these things, but later they found that that is not the correct way to do the sharing of code. We must use version control system. So to make that possible, every developer will upload code into the version control server, and then other developers can download that code from there and use it for further application development. Okay, so if I want to share code with you, I can put any Python programs, etc., that I am developing. I can put everything in version control system, and you all can download all that code in your systems. Okay, directly through that version control tool. So I will have some version control tool. You will have some version control tool. I will upload my code into version control tool, and you can download it. Okay. So how that happens, that we will understand. Okay. So you can see here in the above diagram. So there are three developers who are developing code. Programmer 1 developed 10 code files. Okay. Programmer 2 developed 5 code files. Programmer 3 developed again 5 code files. All of them, they will upload the code to the version control server. Okay, so there will be version control server. So all of them will develop the code and put the code and upload it into the version control server. So we have total of 20 code files on the version control server. Next day, when they download the code from the version control server, all of them will hold 20 code files. Okay. So this way the version control server, okay, the version control server, it will help you to basically share the code amongst each other, and it will also help to maintain the code safely, because once the code is in version control server, something goes wrong in your system also, it doesn't matter, all your code is safe in the version control server. Next thing, you can maintain multiple versions of the same code. Okay, I can maintain probably 10 versions of one particular code in my version control server. So what you are understanding, we understand that version control is a server and it takes code from multiple developers and combines or integrates that code into a single project. Okay, so you can understand that point now. So you can have multiple developers, and all these developers, they are writing code and they are pushing that code into the version control server. Now, so let's see further. The meaning of version control is controlling different versions of software. So let's see this example over here. Software developers build software programs today and call it as version 1. At the end of the day, they upload it to the version control server, that is called check-in. Okay, so whenever you are uploading the code to the version control server, that is called check-in. Next day, They download the same code from the server and make further changes to the software by adding or removing lines of code and call it as version 2.0. Okay, so today, let's say we wrote one Python program to accept a number and print the square of that number. Tomorrow, that same code I modify again. So today I wrote program accept number and print the square of the number. That I upload it to my version control server. That becomes version 1 of that program. Tomorrow I'll download that same code from there and I'll add some more features like apart from displaying the square of the number, also display the uh, whether that is odd number or even number. Okay, something like that. So that will become version 2 of that program. So in this way, over 10 days, you may make 10 different versions of the same code. Okay, you may keep on adding or removing lines of code to your program. So like that, you will get version 3, 4, 5, and so on. Now, on the 10th day, the client for whom you are developing that software, he said that version 10 program is not what he wanted. So version 10 program, maybe it is accepting number, displaying square, plus it is showing whether it is odd or even number, plus it is printing numbers from 1 to that particular number which has been entered, and many other things. Okay, so on 10th day the client is telling, no, I don't want this program, I want the code as it was on day 4. So on day 4, the code was such that it was accepting a number, it was printing the square of the number, it was printing whether that number is odd or even, and maybe it is printing the square root of that number also. Okay, fine. So that was version 4 program. Now client is saying that I want that version 4 program. That was very good program which you developed on 4th day. That is exactly suiting to my requirements. Now, since we are using version control system, we can simply revert back to that version 3 or version 4, whatever. Okay, as all older versions of programs are kept in the version control server. So directly you can go back to any previous program that you had developed and download that code. So since version control is being used, the programmers can revert back to version 3 or 4 as it is having all the code. So this is very important. So because just imagine if this version control system is not there and you are going on uploading your code to your email ID. So that will be very silly, no? What will happen? You are you wrote one program and you upload it to your email ID. Then again tomorrow you download it and made difference to that code. Then again you are attaching the file, again uploading to your email ID. First of all, those mails are mixing up with all other emails which are coming to you. So email account is not a place to maintain code. Okay, so code may be very large in size. So sometimes that attachment itself will not go to your mail ID. So we cannot use email or some cloud to store the code. You cannot use Google Drive to store code. So there is no version controlling over there. Okay. So Google Drive is not a version control system. You are creating folder, you are putting code over there. Tomorrow you again upload that code file. The earlier code file will get overwritten by the new code file that you have developed because file name is same, no? Same program you are modifying. So same code files, same python.py file is modifying on daily basis. So how can you retain the old Python file plus the new Python file? Both should be retained. So for that you need version controlling. There is no alternate to that. Okay. So you must understand this. Okay. Now, whenever a developer downloads any code, okay, modifies it, then the version control system keeps track of the changes and the user who made the changes. So every detail about the developer who made changes to code is kept in the version control server. So supposing you downloaded one file, something, file1.py from the version control system. After getting that code from the version control system, just type one or two lines of code. Immediately the version control system, it will identify that the file has changed. Okay, the file has changed and it will show you that as a changed file. And again you can upload it back over there. So every detail about the developer who made the changes to the code is kept in the version control server. Very detailed information it will maintain, version control server. Okay. Uh, Types of version controlling. Now there are two types of version controlling. You have centralized version controlling and distributed version controlling. Distributed version controlling is more powerful than centralized version controlling. Why it is more powerful, we will understand. First, you understand what is centralized version controlling. So, centralized version controlling, what happens? There will be one remote server. Okay, see the diagram over here. There will be one remote server known as the version control server. That is the central repository. All developers will be uploading their code into that version control server. Okay, so basically they develop the program in PyCharm in the client system, in their local system. After the program is ready, they will update those files to your version control server. Now, the remote server will contain and track all versions of all code and also track who is making what changes to which code and creating new versions. Everything will be tracked by the central version controlling system. So on the local machine of the developer, there is no version control software. An example of centralized version controlling is SVN. So SVN is one centralized version control tool. SVN stands for subversion. Okay, so subversion is one software. It's a centralized version control system. So, what is the problem in this centralized version control system? If the central server got crashed or got damaged due to some reason or got corrupted, then you will lose all the code because you don't have those code files in your local system. Everything had been uploaded to the remote server. Of course, you may have the latest version of the code in your local, but earlier versions of code may not be there in your local system. Everything gets uploaded to the central server. Okay. Now, second type of version controlling is distributed version controlling. Now, in distributed version controlling, initially you have a local repository. So there will be something called as local repository that will be installed in the developer system. So in your laptop or my laptop, there will be local repository. So first of all, whatever code I develop, I will place that code in the local repository and that is running in my local system. It's not there in any server. Okay. Now, so in this repository, local repository, version controlling will happen at the level of individual developer. So I am a developer, I build some code and I'll push that code into local repository as version 1. Later, again I got that code from local repository, again modified and again push it back into local repository as version 2. So in my local repository I have version 1 and version 2. Both are there in my local repository. Finally, the developer he may decide to upload all out of these two, version 1 and version 2, which is working perfectly. The one which is working perfectly, developer decides to push that code to central repository. Okay, so he will upload that to the central repository, but that uploading and all is not like uploading Google Drive like that. It is all done with commands. Okay, all commands are there. So the command will pick up that code and push it off to central repository. Okay. Now, so from the local repository, the code is uploaded to central repository on remote server. Now, once the code is available in central repository, then it is available to all the developers in the project. Any developer can then download that code which was built and uploaded to the central repository. So version control server, central repository is there and local repositories are there. In each individual system where distributed version control tool has been installed, there will be a local repository, and apart from that, there will be central repository sitting in a central server. Okay. Now, so version controlling in distributed version controlling, the version controlling is happening at two levels. First, at individual developer level, and again, version controlling is happening at higher centralized team level. So it's like this, So I may develop some program and I may develop several programs and put them in my local repository. So some of those programs are given to me as task by the company, and some of the programs I just wrote simply in my free time. Maybe in my free time I developed one calculator. So that is also lying in my local repository. But that doesn't mean that calculator should go to the central repository. The central repository belongs to company. So I will not push calculator to central repository, but I will push personal banking code to central repository, or login page of my internet banking I will put to central repository. Okay, so I'm not going to put every code that I have in my local repository to the central repository. So we are doing version controlling at two levels. Okay. So in case, what are the advantages of distributed version controlling? So in case central repository server crashes, developer will still have code at the local. And if local crashes, still central is there. Either way, you can get the code from any place. So in case local fails, then we can always download code from central repository. So this is possible in centralized version controlling as well. Downloading code from central repository is possible in centralized version controlling. Okay, but if central server itself got failed, then nothing will be there in local repository in centralized version controlling. Because in centralized version controlling, there is no concept of local repository. Only central repository concept is there. Okay. So let us assume that we are building a bank application that has two modules, loans and personal banking. So there is one team of developers, they are working on loans, other team is working on personal banking. Okay. So team of developers working on loan application will build the code and then they will push that into their individual local repositories. Later they may upload that code to remote server or remote repository for the loans application. Now, code on the remote repository will be able to be accessed by the loans module team members only. Now, that depends on how they set the permissions. So, if they are allowing other team members to see that code, others will also see. Or if they are not allowing others to see the code, then only the loans module team members, they only will see the code which is there in the loans module central repository. So another set of developers, they may be working on personal banking. Again, they have a personal banking central repository. So from their local repository, they are pushing code to the central repository for the personal banking. Okay. So we can see that the version controlling is happening individually at loan application and personal banking application levels. In both sides it is happening. Okay. So later that code can be uploaded from central repositories of loan and personal banking to higher level central repositories that will maintain code at the bank level. Okay. So later on you can upload that code to the central repositories of loan and personal banking. Okay. Those are the higher level central repositories and they will maintain the code at the bank level. So here version controlling is happening at the level of entire project. So there may be multiple central repositories. So first from local I am putting central repository of personal banking and some other guy is putting from local to central repository of loans. Then again from those two central repositories they may upload the code into one common central repository which is there for both loans as well as for personal banking. Okay. So in that situation you have one more higher level central repository that is maintaining the code for the entire project. Okay. So this is a typical advantage of distributed version controlling. So first version controlling is happening at individual developer level. So developer is doing lot of coding. He's writing his personal programs. He's writing test programs. He's also writing programs that he is supposed to write for the company. Now he is checking in all the code into his local repository. His personal code also he is keeping in local repository and he is also keeping the code that he is developing for the company in his personal repository or on the local repository and he is also writing, yeah, so basically his personal code as well as the company code both are going into the local repository. Now out of that he is only uploading the code that is relevant, that is the code that is relevant to the company, he is pushing it to the central repository. Okay. He is not putting every code in central repository. So a lot of the code he has developed is not used by the company. Like for example, I was saying if I develop calculator, why will I put that calculator in my personal banking? I'm not going to put that over there. I developed calculator for myself, for my local system. Okay. So that time, okay, version control is happening at the individual developer level first of all. Then he is uploading to the particular module central repository. That is version controlling happening at some team level. Okay, and then finally you are again merging, probably taking the personal banking code and you are taking the loans application code and some other code and merging everything into a yet higher central repository. Okay, so this is what is the meaning of version controlling. So here I have given definitions and some diagram. Okay, so how to install this? So we are going to learn a version control tool called as Git. Now there is no full form for Git. Git is Git. That's all. So don't think that GIT is again having some full form. There's nothing like that. So Git was basically a version control tool which was developed by the guy who built Linux operating system. Because when he was developing Linux operating system, he had to maintain multiple versions of the code of Linux source code. So what he did, he built one version control tool called as Git. Git has become today one of the most popular version control tool in the world. But there are many other version control tools in the world. Okay. Like for example, some of my students whom I taught DevOps, they are working on a version control tool called as Perforce. Perforce. Every company is using some version control tool. We don't know. But initially learning Git is the best idea because Git is first of all free of cost. Okay, Git is free, and 80% of companies they use Git. Okay, and today Git is owned by Microsoft, so you have good future with Git. So Microsoft itself is also using Git for their version controlling. But when you go for some products, like for example, if you are using .NET, if you are using .NET, then generally they use a version control tool called as TFS. Okay, TFS, that is Team Foundation Server. Team Foundation Server is a version control tool from Microsoft. Okay, SVN Subversion is there. That's the centralized version controlling tool. Git is there. Git is a distributed version controlling tool. So you are having various version controlling tools in the world, but we are learning the most popular one. Okay. So how to install Git on Windows? Simply go to gitscm.com downloads. Okay, if you go to this website, and there you download Git for Windows. So it is
हम भी करें
downloading.
क्या?
You
हमें
down.
भी करना है भैया?
I'll send you a document. You install it. Nothing is there in that.
अच्छा.
That document link is there. Just click the link. Click download. It will download the software. After downloading the software, just install it. The thing is, it's just a small program. Just let us go through the screens of that. I'll install and show you. First time you install, no, it will ask many questions. That is the thing.
हाँ, तो मैं वही कह रही थी ना, साथ के साथ कर लें क्या डाउनलोड आपके साथ में?
But in future, how you will do? You see recording and do better,
ओके, ठीक.
because supposing I am not there anyhow, you need recording only to do that. So let us see this. First of all, I already have Git, so I'll deinstall it. First of all, programs and features.
मेरा वर्जन नीचे.
Download is there. So right click on this, uninstall. You want to completely remove? Yes. Okay, so Git is gone. Now we will install freshly. Download is completed. Click over here, show in folder. Double click on this. Now installer will come. So general public license is there. Click next. It is free software. Whenever you see general public license means it is a free software. Next. So setup will install Git in following folder. So you need 256 MB of free space. Okay. C colon program files Git. Okay. Next. Already exist because I had installed earlier. Would you like to install to that folder? Yes. So it is showing you these are the components. Windows Explorer integration, Git LFS, large file support, associate dot git star configuration files with default text editor, associate dot sh files to be run with bash. Okay, now click next. Setup will create program shortcuts. To continue, click yes. Okay. Click browse, click next. Just click next, nothing to do here. Use VIM, the some text editor as Git's default editor. Yes, next. VIM means VI editor. Next. Adjusting the name of initial branch in new repositories. Let Git decide. Let Git decide. Here you don't just go with default. How would you like to use Git from the command line? Git from command line and also from third party software. This option adds only some minimum Git wrappers to your path to avoid cluttering. 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.